Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the April 2020 edition of A Call with Dr. Cook. My
Hey,
name is
hello, George.
Vaughn. How you doing?
I know I jumped right in. We're socially distanced here, everybody, so I can't see George's smiling face, but I can hear his smiling voice.
It's funny time we live in, and it's good to be together. It's good to be able to use technology like we have, and have technology so that we can use it and keep in contact with everybody. So, welcome,
And
welcome.
it's interesting, George, that you mentioned that because over the last several weeks we've been in this condition, and it's a worldwide condition. So it's kind of forced everybody into a space where we have had to adapt like this, and it turns out to not be such a bad thing. I hope that in the future we continue to use it, maybe not as much as we are right now, but
Well,
it's certainly a nice way to reach a lot of people
And
fast.
Dr. Cook, one of the things that you mentioned is, what would we do if we didn't have technology to go through some of these things? We'll talk a little bit more about Limbic Arc and some of the things, but I mean, when you go to the stores and you see, empty shelves and you see all of the disruption and all of the challenge, the social distancing. I mean, one of the answers to today's problems is new technology. It allows us to continue to function, and Limbic Arc certainly is one of those technologies that I think is a life changer for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah,
But
for sure.
anyway, I every time I do this, I always feel like I need to introduce Dr. Cook. What an amazing, amazing person to work with, and I hope that all of you at some point in time are able to have your own experiences with Dr. Cook and to be able to learn from his innovative thought process. It's just such an honor, Dr. Cook. I feel like
Oh,
I'm working with a pioneer, and
George, George, I'm blushing.
I can see. Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you.
since we've been last time, I know that our info boost we put out right at the beginning of this pandemic, Dr. Cook, we put out an info boost called Today's Immunity. And boy, I'm just overwhelmed by the response that we're hearing from people using this new amazing info boost. It's to have that immunity info boost in your pocket and be able to use it with Limbic Arc technology when you need it, without leaving the comfort of your home is just an amazing benefit and a blessing to so many people. And I hope that you're having good experiences. If you're having good experiences with today's immunity, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear. Send in some your stories and tell us a little bit about it and spread the word. I'm. It's fun to see from our perspective. I would also mention, new to our website, we have a new video for friends and family. And if you haven't subscribed to the Limbic Arc YouTube channel, please do. That way you'll get notified when there are new things that come out. Also, you can find it on the Learn More section of limbicarc.com. It's a great new video to help share or set up friends and family program. It's simple, it's easy, and what a blessing to share it with other people. So just kind of a couple of things in terms of housekeeping before we get started. Um, Boy, today's topic, Dr. Cook, I'm going to get out of my league really quickly here. We're talking about imponderables. For, for those of you who have noticed in the Limbic Arc library, the topic of imponderables was put in, I don't know, how long's it been there, Dr. Cook?
Oh gosh, what, 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, it's been there for a little while, and there are a few people that have really been thrilled and excited and are just amazed at what's happening. And there are a lot of people that are maybe not really sure about imponderables, and so I get, like I say, I get out of my league pretty quickly with this, Dr. Cook. Imponderables it's a homeopathic term, is that right?
It is, and we're going to talk about that with some slides here in a minute because a lot of people have said, what does this mean? When it shows up, it's not a nutraceutical, it's not a vitamin or a mineral like the other things in library. And so today the hope is that we'll answer that question.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, you go to the library, and if you see something like vitamin C, we can think of what vitamin C is, because it's a physical product. And a lot of the botanicals and the herbs and the different things, we can relate to. Imponderables, I think we can, I read the terms and I can relate to them, but it's not something that I can like touch or feel.
Well, and that's a great segue into this presentation, George, because in order to understand imponderables, it really is a homeopathic term, and it's helpful to understand the basis of homeopathy. Homeopathy began by this guy's considered the father of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann. He was born in 1755 and died in 1843. If you look in Wikipedia, this is what it says. He's a German physician best known for creating the pseudoscientific system of alternative medicine called homeopathy. I put the funny face by that. I actually put it in here because if you don't understand what somebody's doing, or you think they're doing something that's less rigorous than what you might think should be done, then it's common for people to say, oh, that's just pseudoscience. And when I see this in Wikipedia, I know that Wikipedia has a bias towards pharmaceutical medicine.
Right.
And so I'm not surprised when I see this, but I wanted to leave it in because I'm sure people will look at Limbic Arc sometimes and say, oh, that's just pseudoscientific. But it's just a way to try to discredit the person you're talking about. Well, there's actually been more research done with homeopathy than probably there's ever been done on pharmaceuticals. And it's a pretty vast program. But be that as it may, let me introduce you to Samuel Hahnemann. He was a very smart fellow. He spoke multiple languages, 7, 9 maybe. And in fact, he was so smart when it came to languages that he earned his living going through medical school, translating medical textbooks from one language to another.
Oh.
One day he was translating an English textbook into German, and he came across a concept or a description. I think the doctor who wrote the book was named Collins, if I remember right. But he was talking about cinchona bark. Cinchona is a tree, and the bark is used as a medicine to treat malaria. And the description or the logic behind using the bark was it's bitter, and so it helps with malaria. And you can see I've got an icon there that shows a fever. Well, when Hahnemann read this, he actually made a note in the book. I mean, he was an interesting fellow, but he made kind of a disparaging remark in the book he was translating. But it didn't make any sense to him because he said, wait a minute, cinchona bark helps malaria, but if it's because it's a bitter taste, well, there's things that are a lot more bitter than that. And if that was the logic, then they should be able to be medicine for malaria as well. And they're not. So this whole idea of taste didn't make any sense to him. But it turns out that it was common during his lifetime or his early lifetime for people to attribute medicinal value of plants to their taste. So, the bitter thing helps the fever, and the yucky thing helps the backache, and the sweet thing helps the headache.
Interesting.
Hahnemann then said, okay, I'm gonna do an experiment on myself. I'm gonna take cinchona bark and I'm gonna eat it and see what happens. And so he started eating cinchona bark, and lo and behold, he developed the symptoms of malaria. He didn't get malaria, he just developed the symptoms of malaria. And he found that, in fact, what happened, the way you prove a remedy or the way you find out what something's good for homeopathically is you take a healthy person, you feed it to them until they start to get symptoms, and then you catalog those symptoms very carefully. And that's called proving a remedy. That's a little aside, but it's interesting. So then what Hahnemann thought was, well, maybe cinchona bark is good for treating malaria because those are the symptom patterns that it will create if you ingest it in larger quantities. So he took some cinchona bark and he ground it up and he put it into a mixture. He called it a mother tincture. And he started to give it to his patients. But let me tell you what happens. I got to describe this next slide. He then took that mother tincture and he diluted it even further. And you'll notice that we've got the diluent going into the flask. We've got 10 drops of diluent and 1 drop of the mother tincture. That 10-to-1 ratio then creates what's called a 1x remedy. And if you take then the 1x remedy and put 1 drop of it into a clean flask with 10 drops of diluent, you get a 2x and a 3x. And so you can, that's called serial titration, where you continually dilute and dilute. But I'm just sticking with the 1x for the purpose of this slide deck. So anyway, he made this dilution. And then what he found was if I take that dilution and if I have the right dilution and I give it to a person who is showing the symptoms of malaria, it actually turns them back into a healthy person. And he developed what is called the law of similars, which means like cures like. In other words, something that creates a symptom pattern will, at the appropriate potency or dilution, remedy that same symptom pattern. Now, this is true because symptoms are the outward expression of the body's best attempt to deal with a physical challenge, a disease. So if you get a fever, there's a physiological reason to get a fever. Your body spikes a fever for a purpose. It just doesn't do things randomly. And if you get a fever and a runny nose and achy muscles and a cough, well, that pattern of symptoms, you might look at somebody and say, oh, you have a cold or you have the flu. But the body is attempting to deal with this physical challenge, and the symptoms are just the outward expression of its effort to do that. And so what happens with homeopathics, the homeopathic remedy will stimulate a similar response. And what it does is then it supports the body in dealing with the challenge. So if you've got a fever and a backache and a headache, and you take a remedy that would create a fever, a backache, and a headache, it's kind of like it gives your body this little nudge. It's supporting the body in what it's naturally doing. And that's called like cures like, the law of similars.
Like cures like.
It's really, it's quite logical when you think about it. Most of the time, those symptoms are not thought of as a positive thing. They're thought of in terms of a negative thing. Oh, you've got a fever. Well, let's get your fever down. Okay, let's take an aspirin. You don't get a fever. Oh, you got a runny nose? Let's give you some medicine to stop your nose from running. Oh, you got some achy muscles? Here, take an aspirin. Let's stop those achy muscles. Now, I'm not saying that those are bad things, but because they're probably intuitive things. To some degree, homeopathy is a little bit counterintuitive because it's like, oh, your muscles ache. Well, here, let me give you something that will help your muscles ache faster.
So, Doctor, when somebody, you hear about people going through allergy treatments or other things like that, where they maybe have a sensitivity to pollen or something that causes it, and they take very small amounts and they give it to them in hopes that it will create the cure. Is that something similar or is that something different?
No, it's similar. It's not as, if you said that to a homeopath, they'd probably, call you a heretic. But honestly, it is similar. If you've got a ragweed sensitivity, you can take ragweed there's a dilution of ragweed that will actually act as the cure to your sensitivity or your allergy to the ragweed. So it is a direct application of what Hahnemann discovered with this law of similars.
I'm trying to think of practical examples of homeopathy that most people would relate to.
Well, that's one of them, the one you just described.
No, this is very fascinating because I know that in a lot of the stores, even, you go to even some of the big box stores today, you'll see homeopathic, well, you have seen in the past homeopathic remedies and different things like that. And
Yeah.
and it's just misunderstood, I guess. So this is very helpful.
Well, what happened with Hahnemann is, he lived in the day of the horse and buggy, and he would put his medicine in his buggy, and then he'd go out to visit his patients and drive his buggy over the cobblestone streets. And what he found was, over time, his medicine became stronger and stronger. And he discovered that what was happening was the shaking of the medicine in the cart was actually potentizing it, was energizing the remedy so that it had a more powerful action. And so he duplicated that as he then continued to build different remedies from different sources. And the process is called succussion or potentization. So what he did is he took a leather-bound Bible and he would make his dilution, and then he would take a hold of the dilution and he'd pound it on this Bible to shake it. I remember back in the olden days when I first got introduced to homeopathy, I would go to some of these homeopathic conventions, and I remember hearing the stories of people saying, "Oh no, you can't make a homeopathic remedy unless you succuss it on a leather-bound Bible," because that's what Hahnemann did. And my guess is Hahnemann probably just had a leather-bound Bible handy, and so that's the book he used. But they don't do that today. When you get a modern-built homeopathic remedy, it's all done with machines. But they still use this same process of succussing. Homeopathic remedies are made from plants or healthy tissue or diseased tissue or disease-causing organisms. They're made from minerals, and they're made from non-physical items. And
so would they call these
the remedies would be made from the plants. Pardon?
No, Dr. Crook, sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt. But you mentioned earlier
No,
mother tinctures.
Well, the mother tincture is the original dilution. So,
Okay.
for example, if you wanted to make it out of that red flour in the upper left corner there, you would take the flour and you would crush it up, and then you would dissolve it in usually an alcohol or an alcohol water solution, and you leave it there for a period of time so that you can extract the chemicals out of that flour, and that becomes your mother tinctures, the original dilution. And then you take that and you start to dilute it sequentially to get your different potencies. But you can make remedies, these remedies that are made out of healthy tissue, they're called sarcodes. The remedies that are made out of disease organisms or diseased tissue are called nosodes. You've got gem therapies or gem remedies, and you have remedies that are made out of non-physical things, and those are called imponderables. They call them imponderables because you can't really put your finger on it like you can put your finger on a plant or a piece of tissue.
So, Dr. Cook, you broke up just a little bit. Explain sarcodes and nosodes one more time, would you?
Okay, let me back up to that slide. A sarcode is made from healthy tissue.
Okay.
And a nosode is made from either diseased tissue or disease-causing organisms. So you can have what's called a bacteria nosode. You can have a cancer nosode. On the sarcode side, you would have like heart tissue made into a homeopathic remedy that then is called a sarcode, but it's made from healthy tissue.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Now, imponderables are their value is determined in the same way any other homeopathic remedy's value is determined. In other words, if you get out into the sun, because sunlight is a source of a homeopathic imponderable. And if you get out in the sun too long, you're going to get thirsty. You might feel invigorated. You might get a rash, a sunburn. You might become dehydrated. So those are the symptoms that you would match the imponderable for sun to. If you looked at this EMF world that we live in, you got 4G and 5G and all the other radiation, those exposure to that radiation will cause a particular symptom pattern. And if that symptom pattern emerges, then you can use that homeopathic remedy made from that imponderable to actually mitigate that symptom profile. The challenge, however, is you can't take sunlight and put it into a bowl and mash it up and dilute it in water or in alcohol. And so with imponderables, there's a different technique for making those remedies. It's a little bit more esoteric than making a remedy from a physical source is, but the effect, it can be just as powerful because you go through this process that's been described and cataloged for making imponderables. But the important thing to remember is these imponderables are used in the same way any other homeopathic remedy would be used, and that is to deal with a particular symptom or a particular symptom pattern. If you go into the Limbic Arc and you look into the boost ingredients, you'll see the categories. And one of the categories you can see there is imponderables. And the other day, I went in and did a spark scan. I think I did it yesterday, in fact. I did a spark scan, and these are the outcome ratios that showed up for these imponderables for me. You'll see that 5G is 78%, broadband emission 79%, EMF infrared is 70%, EMF ultraviolet was 77%. Those were the high ones. Now, in this spark scan, I had things that were 99% and 95%. So they were a lot higher than these things that are showing up in the 70%. But if I look at this, would I then conclude, oh, I must have been exposed to some broadband emission, or maybe I'm getting too much 5G radiation? The answer is possibly.
Right.
Because if I am expressing a symptom pattern that's consistent with someone who has been overexposed to, let's say, broadband emission, then my expression of these symptoms could be caused by broadband emissions, but not necessarily. It may be that I just have a symptom pattern that happens to correspond with this broadband emission, but it's not, it's not a this for that relationship. In homeopathy, if you can prescribe a remedy that is close to the symptom pattern of your patient, that's called you're getting a similar. But if you can hit the nail on the head, that's called a simillimum. In other words, there is a remedy that's going to match every one of your symptoms. And if I give that to you as if I prescribe that to you, you're going to see miraculous healing take place.
Right.
But because you can't hit the nail on the head all the time, you try to get as close as you can. And so anyway,
Right.
The point I'm trying to make here is when you see these numbers, if you see 5G radiation that shows up at 99%, you don't need to freak out about, oh my gosh, I'm in this 5G radiation bath and it's killing me. You might want to look around to see if you have a 5G bath that's, killing you. But chances are you just have a symptom pattern that's consistent with an overexposure to 5G radiation.
I see. And because like cures like, the remedy is the cure.
Right. Now, in this case, and we got to wrap it up. I know we're getting a little bit over time on this presentation, but I lost my train of thought. How could I do that, George? Okay, it came back to me.
Okay.
An info-boost ingredient is not a homeopathic remedy. Just as an info-boost ingredient for vitamin C is not vitamin C. These are virtual items. And what we are transmitting through the field effect is the information, not the physical substance.
Right.
And so when we give you in the library 5G radiation, that's the information pattern consistent with that, it's not a homeopathic. So
Correct.
you don't have to, You're
Is
not treating somebody with a homeopathic remedy when you include these things in an info boost.
it's data. It's
That was
just
my
like
concluding thought, George.
everything else in Limbic Arc. It's an assigned pattern. It's an assigned data set.
Right.
Wow.
Okay, I've just turned off my presentation so we can go to the next slide. Hopefully that's helped people understand what an imponderable is a little bit more.
Well, it's Dr. Cook. What an amazing presentation. I know that homeopathics and we've heard the words and we've talked about it, but that really gives a basis of understanding, which I think is incredibly helpful. So thank you for that. Hey, if you've got a minute, I know we're running short on our time, but there are just a few questions. I wish we had time to go through all of the questions, but we've picked out 2 or 3 here that we'd like to really focus on quick, Dr. Cook. Again,
Let's do it.
Ask Dr. Cook at limbicarc.com is where to send your questions. We're happy to respond. But here, Jose asked, when setting up an info boost, when should I start to notice it working? If I set it up for, say, 7 days, the default number, do I need to wait until it's completed before I notice results?
That's a very good question. The answer is it depends. If Jose is really in tune with his body energetically, he will experience the info boost more quickly than if he is not.
Okay.
Most people, I suspect, who take an interest in Limbic Arc have some energetic sensitivity. And so, but let me just tell you what I used to tell my patients in my clinic. They would say, well, how soon am I going to notice the difference? The answer was maybe tomorrow, but it may take 2 weeks. Because what we're doing is we're helping, as I'm sticking acupuncture needles in, we're adjusting your body energetically, and your body energetically moves very quickly compared to the chemical part of your body. And it sometimes will take your body 2 weeks to receive the energetic benefit. And so what you want to do, Jose, is you want to start your info boost. I always put mine on 14 days. We have the default in there at 7, but I select them on 14. And when I turn on an info boost, it takes me about 15 seconds to feel the effect.
But you're very sensitive to it as well.
But I've got a lot of experience with energy, and I'm really sensitive to it. So I'll feel the effect. But that doesn't mean I would want to jump to a different info boost in 30 seconds. I leave that thing going for 14 days because I know it may take my body 14 days to catch up chemically to what I'm feeling in 15 seconds.
Interesting.
So, and then the other thing, George, and let me just wrap this question up with this. It's helpful to give people an idea of what to feel, because a lot of people say, well, okay, I've turned on my pain info boost and I still have the pain. Well, it may be that the pain is a downstream event, and what you're going to feel first are these upstream causes of the pain. In other words, you may feel like you're feeling better. It's kind of like when you get a cold and you say, I feel like I'm getting a cold. Well, that's because your energy's out of balance and you're moving to a cold. And then you start to get better and you say, I feel like I'm getting better. And you start to get better, but you feel like you're going to get better before you actually are better. So the same thing would happen with the pain. So pay attention. Do you sleep better? Is your appetite better? Do you have more energy? Are you more positive? Do you speak more kindly to the people around you? Pay attention to those kinds of things, which you might think, well, this has nothing to do with my pain. And I would say it may have everything to do with your pain. So pay attention.
Okay. So the energy moves faster than the physical body, the chemistry.
Yes.
Okay, another question. I'm going to push through another one here. Douglas asks, I've heard people say that when their info boost completes, they've had pain come back. When an info boost finishes its cycle, is there a natural deterioration in the benefits, or does it end immediately? Is it abrupt?
My experience is that if there is a diminution, I guess that's the right word. If your if your desired outcome deteriorates, it usually happens over time. It usually is not an abrupt fall off the cliff kind of thing.
Okay.
There is a concept in homeopathy called peeling the onion. And the concept is, as you move from your current state of health or wellness to a deeper, more healthy you do it by peeling the layers off in the way you would if you were peeling an onion. So you go from the outer layer to an inner layer to an inner layer and deeper and deeper. And when you start an info boost, I think that's analogous to dealing with the outer peel. And so as you peel deeper and deeper, you'll find that you want to adjust your info boost because your body may have benefited from the information in today's info boost. Now it needs new information, and so you go in and you redo the info boost and redo the spark scan.
Okay.
But it's not a I wouldn't use limbic arc as a cure for today's problem. Now, George, when I say that, I do use it for that. Sometimes I'll be dealing with an issue and I'll just jump in and do a quick info boost and I'll leave it on for 3 or 4 days, something that I'm dealing with in the moment. But I have what I call my constitutional info boost, and I have that running perpetually, and I always set that for 14 days.
Yeah.
Now, that having been said, I adjust. You want to adjust your info boost. You want to stay current with it. You want to stay contemporary. And if the 7 days or the 14 days expires, and the old pain comes back, like Douglas is talking about here, well, do another info boost, and that'll move your body to a different position, and hopefully it'll be a deeper position because you're peeling the outer shell of the onion.
Yes. And I would say that also, if you use a spark scan, it's going to help with all of the things that may be top of mind as well. So pay attention to what comes up in your spark scan.
Right.
Okay, I know we're a couple of minutes overdue, Dr. Cook, but there's one more question that comes up again and again, and Anna says, can you put info boost for specific things like depression, mental illness, psoriasis, skin, diabetes? There are lots of words out there that we associate with diseases, and people are just really trying to understand how to use Limbic Arc to work with those kinds of conditions.
I'll be really quick. The quick answer is we will not create info boosts named depression, mental illness, etc. They won't have disease names. George, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I heard a click on the thing. I wasn't sure if I went dead or not here. But the reason we won't use those disease names is because that would not make the FDA happy. The Limbic Arc is not designed to diagnose or treat a disease. It's designed to improve quality of life.
Yes.
Now, that having been said, let's say that I was dealing with diabetes and I wanted an info boost specific for me and my current state or my current quality of life. When I did my spark scan, I would talk about my diabetes because voice is topic specific. And if I talk about the diabetes, then the energy that goes into the spark will be focused on that concern that we call diabetes. But as a company, we won't be building this to be a treatment for any disease, period.
Yeah. Well, it's a wellness tool. It should be used as a wellness tool. And if you're dealing with the challenge, if you have a challenge that you need to go see a doctor, go see a doctor. But if you want to work on your wellness and if you want to work on your blood sugar levels, maybe do a spark scan on blood sugar and talk about it and always do some research. A lot of the ingredients that you'll see in a spark scan and in the Limbic Arc library have incredible, search any of them on Google and you'll learn a lot about it. So,
well, and if you think about Limbic Arc in terms of quality of life, the question then is, what in your life would make your quality of life better, or what in your life is impacting your quality of life in a negative way? And then talk about that.
Yeah.
And if it happens to be diabetes, so be it.
Great advice, Dr. Cook. Thank you so much. I would just remind everybody the next call with Dr. Cook is going to be May 27th. That's a Wednesday at 5 p.m. So be sure to put that on your calendar. Also, customer service, are there to help. What a great group of people to help out with Limbic Arc. So if you have account changes or even help setting up an info boost, you can talk with customer service. You go to the contact us section of the Limbic Arc website, and you'll be able to get that information and get some help. Help is really literally at the tip of your fingers, and we want to make sure that you have the ability to help get that value out of the tool with Limbic Arc. Also, we're going to be posting a replay of this, and you'll see other calls with Dr. Cook on our website. And if you'll click on the monthly call with Dr. Cook at the top of any page, you'll find that. Also, you can always go to our YouTube channel and get more information there. But Dr. Cook, what a great interesting topic on imponderables. I can't wait to do my Spark scan and check it out. So thanks again.
George, good to be with you and everyone else.
And to everybody else, stay well, stay healthy, and use your Limbic Arc. Get you an info boost and stay well. Thanks again.